If I told you that the helplessness you're feeling was actually learned? So there was a crazy experiment where they were studying classical conditioning, which is where someone associates one thing with another. And they would involve dogs in the experiment, and they would ring a bell and the dog would get a light shock after hearing the bell. And eventually, over time, guys guiding the experiment would just ring the bell and the dog would immediately shake in anticipation of the shock. So the dog connected the bell with the shock over time. But here's the craziest part, and this was totally unexpected. So this guy, Martin Seligman, who ran this experiment, did a second experiment where he took the dogs who were shocked from the first experiment and he paired them together with dogs who hadn't been shocked or even part of the first experiment. And he put up a low fence in a cage. He divided a cage with a very low fence, one that the dogs could easily jump over if they tried. And one side of the fence was an electric floor that would shock the dog, and the other side was a floor with no electric shock, so a safe place, if you will. And when he shocked the dogs who weren't part of the first experiment with the bell, the dogs would just hop right over the fence onto the safe side. But the other dogs who had been shocked anytime they heard the bell would just lay down. They learned from the first experiment that there was nothing they could do, so they just laid down and became helpless. And this is where Seligman coined the term learned helplessness. This is where you don't try to get out of the negative experience you're in because the past has taught you that you can't and that you're helpless. So let me ask you, what are the bells in your life that you've learned that you're helpless against? Is it the manipulation, the angry outbursts, the threats of divorce, your spouse's emotional reactions, your spouse's emotional abuse, your spouse always bringing up every little thing that you do that's causing an argument despite how hard you work for you and your family? You've learned that you're defenseless and to just lay down and be helpless. And what does that fence represent? It represents the amount of effort that's required for you to change. You keep seeing the fence as like the walls of a prison and not the size of a tennis net. You watch this video right now and you think to yourself, I can't change. It's too hard, or there's no point because my spouse is never going to change. But your helplessness is learned. Every single day, men in my program are finding their inner warrior and breaking free from all these unhealthy dynamics. They're learning to truly connect with their greatness. And I can tell you right now, every single one of them says the exact same thing. I wish it would have started earlier and stopped believing that I couldn't change my situation. So you see, this new version of you is going to require you to unlearn what you've been taught. And if you've learned helplessness, then you need to be taught invincibility.